what I learned is successful people are willing to do what unsuccessful people are not. So I'm successful because I'm willing to do what you ain't willing to do. I'm willing to get up early. I'm willing to stay late. I'm willing to do it over again. And when I don't feel like doing it, I get up and I do it again. And that's the difference between me and you. I'm gonna keep going when I don't feel like going. You wanna go as long as it's comfortable and convenient. But then you wonder why you ain't got what I got. You ain't going where I'm going.
Welcome to Closing Gap Podcast, Truth About Wealth. I am your co-host, Mr. Eddie Richardson, here with our host and the owner of Hamilton Wealth Advisors, Mr. Wilbert Hamilton. How you doing today, my friend?
Hey, blessed and highly favored.
Amen, man. I'm glad to have you back.
Yes, sir. Glad to be back. As a brief intermission, had to go take care of some business, but
All right.
I'm trying to be back like I never left.
For sure. Yeah. So we strive to hold it down on the previous week.
Yes, sir.
You know what I'm saying? But definitely different with having to do it on your own. But glad to have you back. Right?
Oh yeah.
Back, man, on this. So we are glad that you all tuned in to another Righteous and Holy episode. And today we're going to talk about being a hidden millionaire. Hidden millionaire. You just may be a hidden millionaire and you don't even realize it. So today we're going to walk through some things for you to examine, for you to take a total review of who you are, what you have, your finances, and really see if you're already a millionaire and don't even realize it yet.
Well, absolutely. I mean, it's a lot of people that are in that position. We've been blessed. The market has done pretty well over the past few years, and most people, they've invested in their 401ks and been blessed to have those matching contributions and been taking full advantage of it. And of course, along with, home prices skyrocketed over the last 5-6 years and, generated quite a bit of equity inside those homes. So between some, home equity, 401ks performing well and, on individual investments, a lot of people that are, pushing the envelope to becoming, millionaires, and actually more than ever before. It's more new millionaires being created right now than any other time in history. And that is thanks to a lot of people heavily investing into 401ks, IRAs, of course, and home equity as well. So, those are good things. Those we call good problems. But it can become, somewhat, I won't say damaging is not the right word, but it could be a situation where if not properly accounted for, it can create some issues because there's some tax liabilities that come along with, your wealth as it grows and accumulates. Obviously, whether it's in a brokerage account, you have capital gains taxes. Whether it's in a 401k, you're going to have, income taxes on that money when it comes back out. So understanding how to handle what you've been blessed with is key in every area of life.
That's right. Yeah, because text of Psalm 24:1 says, the earth is the Lord and the fullness thereof. And so when God blesses us with a portion of what's already his, then it's incumbent upon us to make sure that we manage it well, because God does not give us things just for us to abuse them, right? It's just like somebody allowing you to utilize their vehicle or, whatever they may loan you for a moment. They want it back at least in the condition in which they gave it to you.
That's the hope.
That's the hope, right? And better yet, he wants you to clean it up a little bit, and make it even look better.
Yeah, take pride in it.
Yeah. My grandmother used to let me use the vehicle. I would go, and then when I brought it back, I would, vacuum it out, wash it up when we got back, or I wash it before I left. Just doing the extra thing to make sure that you manage things well, because when somebody gives you something, then it's yours, essentially. And so what we're saying today is everything that you have, God has blessed you with it. And so since it's God and God has blessed you with it, then you should take care of it, manage it well, and also to make sure that you do a good review of everything that you have. Our theme this year is alignment and accountability. And so with that alignment, you want to make sure that everything that you own is aligned correctly according to the word of God and according to God's will for your life. And then you want to take accountability for it. When we're talking about managing what somebody loans you, managing what God has given you, then you are the one that's accountable to take care of it. Right?
Absolutely.
You are the one that must manage it well. So it means that, yes, being an owner, but then also being a steward.
Yes.
Being a good steward means that you manage things correctly. And oftentimes a lot of us want to be managers. You know what I'm
Mm-hmm.
saying? A lot of people are managers, right?
Mm-hmm.
Saying a lot of times we don't take the management position that we have as serious as we should oftentimes.
Yeah, well, you know, like the old adage says, I mean, you know, you can be faithful with few, got to make you rule over many. You know, you got to take care of a little before he bless you with a lot. So, you know, a lot of times we kind of let that go over our heads when it comes to our everyday finances and our, you know, things that we're blessed with on a smaller scale. And, you know, we're always, you know, wishing and wanting, like you talked about, you know, when grandma let you borrow that car. I mean, that was, you know, that was the test to see how will you take care of a vehicle if you were to come into, you know, that blessing of having your own car. You know, do you wash it? Do you keep it clean? Do you know, you keep some gas in it? Do you keep, you know, the maintenance up on it? So how do you treat, the vehicle before you get the vehicle? You know, do you take care of it? You know, so that gives us some insight, you know, and I understand now as a parent,
Yeah.
how does that child, you know, take care of your car when you let them borrow it? And it gives you some insight into how they would take care of their old car before they get it. So, you know, we understand those things kind of as we get older, and those are things that we don't necessarily understand quite as much when we're young, but trying to part those good habits, you know, into our kids and, you know, loved ones, and help them, you know, carry those things forward, because those are, you know, traits that we want to have, you know, as we, you know, move forward in life. And, you know, it's a lot of people out there right now that are listening and saying, man, he's saying like it's a lot of, millionaires out here, but I don't really feel like I fall into that category, or, or do I fall into that category? And, you know, the simple and plainest way to say it is most people haven't really taken account of all that they have. They haven't really thought about, because they don't look at that 401k, and, you know, because it's not right there in the hand. It's not like it's not in the bank where you just go pull it out right now. It's put away. Is there some process in order to get to it? There's some tax liability that comes along with it, and obviously, just like, you know, your equity in your home. You know, for us, you know, how often do you get your home appraised to really know the accurate value of your home? Those are things that, you know, in our community we probably don't do enough of making sure we understand the value that we're sitting on. And because we understood, we probably do a little better job taking care of it. You know, if we knew that that home had appraised and that we bought, you know, 15 years ago for 250,000 was not worth, you know, 550,000. You know, we only owed 100,000. You know, we may look, oh man, so you know, I got $400,000 and plus in interest in that home, and, you know, and then equity in that home, and I could use for various purposes, and that equity is usually tax free in most situations. Wow, you know, oh man, I didn't realize that. So all of a sudden, you add up that equity you got, you add up the savings that you got, the CD that you got, you add up the 401ks you and your wife got on the job, and you look up, so man, we actually have over $1 million in assets. And, you know, and it ties all back in what I'm telling people. I said that's why it's so important for us to, you know, get our affairs in order. That's why it's so important to have those, you know, legacy plans and estate plans and things of the nature. And a lot of people walk around sometimes, I don't really have anything. And I'm like, well, you have a home, you have retirement accounts, you have assets. It might not be what you want it to be, but you have something. So it's all about taking care of what you have. You know, just like we talked about that vehicle. Take care of the car that you got. And you might get blessed with one that's even more what you want. But we got to take care of what we have first. And that's where, you know, kind of, you know, that's where we always have to start, and understanding that, you know, we take a full account of where we are financially, where we are, and that's the part of that accountability that we don't like. You know, we don't like to be accountable a lot of times, even to ourselves. In many situations, we don't want to look ourselves in the mirror and say, okay, and see where we actually fall short, because then that creates some accountability, some things that we need to do a better job at. From a saving standpoint, from a, process oriented standpoint, and making sure that all things are working together, for the good of the kingdom and for ourselves, you know, financially moving forward. So, you know, those are all things that we have to take a look at, that we need to be accountable to ourselves. And even if you don't be accountable to yourself, be accountable to your family, because that'll help you have a better idea about, you know, the situation you be leaving them in. You know, you wonder why, you know, families are bickering and fighting, you know, when someone passes away, you know, because somebody has done some alignment and some accounting and has looked at the value of that home, and has, you know, asked about, you know, what kind of retirement accounts, and asked about the CD or the checking or the savings account. And they might have been with that person one day. They went to the bank and, you know, realized that, oh man, they got a few accounts here and there. They have a home, they have these, you know, vehicles and these different assets. And they've done some quick math in their head and said, man, this is actually worth a little bit. I might need to, you know, be a part of this. So all of a sudden, you thinking that everything is gonna go to one part, and all of a sudden there's a family member that come out of nowhere that's contesting the estate, that's contesting, the will, that says, no, 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 no. I think I should inherit the home. And you look like, wow, why would you want it? But somebody's done some accounting behind the scenes, and unfortunately, those type of things happen every day.
That's true.
And we've seen families ripped apart because of the lack of planning and lack of preparation. So when we know better, we do better, hopefully.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. And so, like I said, have to be faithful over a few things, right? So you can be master over many. And oftentimes it's the struggle that we really face in all these communities and in the world is being faithful over what we have. Because oftentimes it's hard for us to really exist where our feet are. And we are always striving to go somewhere else, be something else, do more, have more, and don't realize how blessed we are right where we are. Being able to live and truly exist in the place where we are and have true value in what I have, like you said, the house, the car, my bank accounts, my children, my investment accounts, my 401k, my retirement on my job, or the retirement that I built myself, living in that place and managing it well. That's what faithfulness is, managing what I already have. But also, once we become faithful, I believe that's what helps us be consistent, right? Because you can be faithful and manage something, but then, you know, inconsistency creeps in that we then get too comfortable with what we have, and then we, get a little relaxed, and we are not paying as close attention to what we have and taking care of it the way we should. We're not, when you first get that vehicle the first time, you're managing, you're driving very safe, and you're managing, watching the potholes. But then as the vehicle gets a little older, you get a little more used to it.
Yeah.
You drive it a little rough, you drive it a little faster. Oftentimes a lot of people, they don't like to eat in the car once they
Yeah.
first get it.
Yes,
But
that
then
new car
after,
smell. Yeah.
yeah. But then after they have it for a while, they just go and eat in the car and just throw things around, right? And so we lack the consistency that we need a lot of times too, oftentimes. But if we're faithful, that should lead us to be more consistent. And when we're faithful and consistent, I believe that leads us to a disciplined lifestyle. And, and staying disciplined means that I'm able to do something repetitively over and over and over to the point that it just becomes muscle memory.
Well, absolutely. I put it like this, like like Nick Saban would say, that's what we call it, that rat poison. Getting complacent and getting, you get comfortable, and you start smelling yourself, so to speak. You get into a point where, you've gotten, used to being successful and being in a good position, but you forgot what got you in that position. Like I said, it kind of go from the new car smell to smell like Chick-fil-A, because you enjoy Chick-fil-A all day, every day. So, those are the transitions that happen over time. But, it's important to always remember, that alignment, accountability that you had to have in order to get to a point to receive whatever it is that you were asking for. And then once you receive it, remembering that and staying locked in and focused, because whatever got you here is what's going to take you there. And that's where sometimes we can, get a little comfortable, get a little complacent, and drop the ball. But, when you have that discipline, you have that structure, you have that alignment and that accountability, now you continue to move forward. So you never get complacent. You never get, too comfortable where you are, because you're always striving for more. Because, if you're locked in, step and key with the Lord, He's already shown you a place that He's trying to take you. You have a vision, you have a goal, you have a destination in mind, and you walking out every day. So every day you wake up, you're looking towards, moving to that destination. So, every day I wake up, I'm looking towards moving to a greater destination. So I'm never in a position where I'm comfortable. I'm never, complacent. I'm never, I don't want to say I'm never satisfied, but I'm never, but I am never satisfied. I'm content and thankful and what the God has brought me in. It took me a long time to understand the contentment and being content but not complacent. So, I'm thankful and I'm content and very blessed with what God has done for me so far. But I know there's so much more for me to do. So I'm not complacent and I'm never comfortable, in the seat that I'm sitting in, because I'm always looking for a better seat. I'm always looking to find that new tomorrow and, push myself past, my own personal comfort zones, because that's where your greatness lies. And, it's the old adage says, look, everything you want is the other side of hard. So you got to do what most people are not willing to do. And that's what successful people do. Successful people have become overly obsessed with doing the simple things consistently. Because if I do the simple things consistently to the point where it gets boring, now most people, they venture off, oh man, I don't have to do that no more. I don't have to take my time to do that anymore. But, I relate everything back to sports. Coming up in an athletic background, dad being a basketball coach, I always take it back to when anytime you've ever watched Steph Curry is probably the greatest shooter in the NBA history. Correct. One of them. If you don't think he's the best, he's one of the best. Every time he walks in the gym before a game, he grabs the ball and goes right up under the goal and works on his form shooting. The same shot over and over and over again. And people say, well, man, he's the greatest shooter. Why does he go and work on the basic fundamentals every time he walks to the gym? Why did he go right up in front of the rim and just works on his form with that one hand over and over and over? He should just come in and he could just shoot from half court anytime he wants. Why don't he just go right to work? He said, no. He's become obsessed with understanding there's a process that needs to happen. The simple is what made me great. So let me remember to always do the simple and do the simple consistently, because that's what led to the success I have. So now I'm not going to forget what got me here. I'm going to keep doing that because that's what's going to take me further. And a lot of times in life, we tend to forget the simple. We tend to forget the things that got us where we are because we start thinking too much about ourselves as opposed to what God really wants us to do. And if we always keep, what God wants us to do at the forefront of everything that we're doing, then we would never get complacent because we know the work is not done. See, for me, I know God wants me to teach my community how to create generational wealth. So for me, it's always putting that message forward, but there's new places he wants me to take that message because it's people that ain't heard me yet. It's people that need that message. It's people that, haven't exercised that message. And I never know when is going to be the time that that person listens to this show, or that person watches the YouTube, or that person hears me speak, at a conference or in a situation. I never know when that client walks through the door, is this going to be the time that the words of my mouth change their lives, change their kids' lives and their kids' kids. So, I'm always in a mode of I'm on go. I'm on task. I'm on target, always being held accountable and in alignment with what God has told me to do, because that's what continues to push me forward and put me in a better situation and continue to bless me. And God can, hold me accountable. Just saying, hey, you know what? You ain't forgot what I told you. You remember, you keep the main thing, because it's very easy for us to lose sight on what the main thing is. The main thing is to, seek ye first the kingdom of heaven and his righteousness, and all those things will be added unto you. Well, so for me is, I know my mission. God said, look, I want you to go forward to teach people how to create generational wealth. That's my mission. Now, that may not be your mission, but that's my mission. So everything that I do, I got to be seeking him and moving forward with that in mind and operating in my purpose. And that gives me that direction. So I always stay in alignment with him.
Yeah, that's good. Having your mission, stay in alignment, that's what builds, helps us be faithful. That helps us be consistent. That helps us stay disciplined. And that is what creates hidden millionaires, is those tools, that consistency, remembering that everything that is in the earth is the Lord's and the fullness thereof. God has made us stewards over it. We must be faithful stewards over it. And many of the people that listen, they are faithful stewards over it. And so we want you to know that you very well are a hidden millionaire. And if you have not become a hidden millionaire yet, or don't know, we're going to help you examine it. And then also those that want to be a millionaire, we're going to help you build that generational wealth. and we'll see you right back after this commercial. Welcome back to Close the Gap Podcast, Truth About Wealth. I am the co-host, Mr. Eddie Richardson, here with our host and owner Hamilton Wealth Advisors, Mr. Wilbur Hamilton. And our show is entitled today, Hidden Millionaire. Hidden Millionaire. We want you to take the time to examine all of your accounts, your finances, to see if you're really a hidden millionaire. And then also within this show as well, what you'll find is that if you add it up and you're not, then also you can utilize things that we're talking about to become a millionaire. Oftentimes most people don't look at, they only look at what's in the bank. That's what they're right. They don't take into account the value of the home, the vehicles, retirement accounts, 401k, brokerage account, pensions, business ownership, life insurance, even, and so when we're talking about being a hidden millionaire, what we're saying is that you look at your net worth equals what you own minus what you owe. All right. So what you own minus what you owe. This is how, you're able to come up with your, assets versus your liabilities, is essentially what we're saying. And you can look at your mortgage with loans, credit cards, and you very well could be sitting on 7 figures and not even realize it. And so, well, we want you to look at these things so that you actually take more value in who you are and what you've already done. Many times, while we do need to be more accountable, we do need to put ourselves in check a lot of times, but there are some of our listeners who have been doing that, and we want to tell you, hey, we want to give you a pat on the back. We want to tell you congratulations. You are managing what God has blessed you with. You do realize that the earth is the Lord and the fullness thereof and everything that dwells in it. And you're being a good steward with what God has blessed you with. And so, it's worth you just telling yourself, I'm okay, looking in the mirror, and after you look at your accounts and say, all right, I'm okay, having that contentment, but also not being complacent, continuing that, hey, because I'm at this place, then I'm going to continue to be faithful, consistent, and disciplined in my financial approach so that I can build upon the base that I have right now. So make sure that we take the time every year to do an accountability check, to do a net worth checkup, seeing what our assets versus our liabilities are.
Yeah, when I start having this conversation, my mind starts going a lot of different places.
Talk to it.
Because I talk about money obviously on a day-to-day basis, and I'm always have this conversation around how we can help and build and grow. And I mean, I just need us to do better. I need us to want to do better. I'm on far too many occasions, I feel like when I witness it. So I'm not gonna say I feel like it, but I'm a personal witness. I see it, and people tell me, Mr. Hamilton, I'm good. I'm happy where I'm at. Well, why would you be happy with good when God has blessed you with great? And that's the part about about us sometimes that I just don't understand is that I see people, and like I say, a lot of people have done everything they're supposed to do, and they've done everything they could do on their own to get where they are, and that's great, and I applaud them for the success that they've had individually. But when God has blessed you with being in the presence of someone who can help take you from good to great, why would you not take advantage of that opportunity? I see too many times we get comfortable, we get complacent, we're happy with where we are. But God don't put limitations on what we can do. Why should you put limitations on what he can do for you? Like on too many occasions, I see people that say, "Well, I've done enough for my kids. I've helped them. I've raised them. I've done this." I'm like, you know what? That is great, and you have done an amazing job, and I'm proud of you, and I'm thankful for you, and I'm sure your kids are thankful for you.
Yeah.
But if you have the ability to do more, why not do more? Because see, we've gotten to this place in our community for whatever reason, where we become happy with doing just enough. What if previous generations did just enough? Where would we be? So we got to just take it back and look and say, well, did grandmama and granddaddy do just enough? or did they go above and beyond? Did they make a way out of no way? Did they fight and march and protest and go through things that we really don't even understand and really can't even comprehend the level of fear that some of them had? I'm old enough to have heard the stories of, things that happened to my grandmother and what my grandmother was a product of. And, understanding what, her older siblings and people from those grandparents and great grandparents generations were, witness to, of having aunts, uncles, moms, dads ripped from a home and found, in a ditch, literally, were lynched and things that happened to them. What if they say, you know what, we good where we at? We just gonna stop fighting. We're not gonna press forward and do more and be better. What if they became complacent and content? Where would we be as a community? But because they decided to say, you know what, we see the situation maybe getting a little bit better, but we're not gonna stop it. We're not gonna settle for good. We want to be great. We want our kids to have an opportunity to be great. So they kept fighting and marching and doing everything they could. And then, of course, our parents and generations had a chance to go and to do more and be better. They had a chance to work in corporate, to have pensions and 401ks when, grandmama and them didn't have that chance.
Yeah.
Grandmama and them most of the time were nurses or caregivers. That's what they were. They had to walk to work. They didn't have, car. They had to sacrifice for everyone to have a chance at a better life. And if they were willing to sacrifice themselves for a better life, and yes, you've been blessed with more, and yes, you've done a lot for your kids, and you've blessed them with probably more than enough. We all have more than enough. We all have been blessed and highly favored in ways that previous generations didn't have. But guess what? Why would you stop now instead of sending that message to the next generation of doing more and become a community of people that are going above and beyond and doing more? Would you rather have more than enough or not enough? Would you rather leave your kids in a situation where they have so much they can't mess it up, or so little they don't know what to do next? Like, what do you really want to have happen? I see on far too many occasions I meet, parents that have said, hey, man, I've raised my kids. I pay for them to go to school. That's enough. And I'm like, well, would you say that to God? Would you tell God that's enough? Because he gets tired of you too. But he never tell you that's enough, do it. He always forgive you. He always give you a chance to reconcile and come back to him. And he gives us all grace. Yeah. We all are blessed and highly favored and thankful because of the grace that God's provide us. Yeah. Because ain't none of us worthy in his eyes, if truth be told. We all fall short of the glory. So why were we getting into this place that we feel like we've done enough? You can never do enough, in my opinion. There's always more that you can do, and we should get in the habit of wanting to do more, not just for kids and, but for our community as a whole. Yes, leave your kids in a better situation, but once you take care of your kids, maybe you can bless somebody else's kids. Yeah. There's some kids out there that don't have the same opportunities that your kids have that maybe you can pour into their lives. You might be the one to change the life of somebody that you never come into contact with, because that's for me, that's my passion and my mission, person. I want to affect change in a way that is incomprehensible, that is you really that lacks understanding, and I can't do that on my own. I need God to do that. And the only way that that's going to happen is if I'm actually, faithful to him. And we've got into this mode for whatever reason. I don't know when it started and how it happened, but I meet people on far too many occasions that say I've done enough. And I understand being tired. And I understand that because I'm a parent. Yeah. And as a parent, you get tired. You get tired sometimes, like, you know what, I'm done. I ain't doing no more. And what you gonna do? You gonna do some more. And that's the way it works. And we have to just get in the habit of going above and beyond, and not just with our actions, but with our planning, especially in finance, because we see the state of the world and what's going on right now. We're watching our history literally be stripped away. We're watching things that are happening from a political standpoint that have really never happened before, or I won't say never happened before, but haven't happened in a very, very long time, and haven't happened in our lifetime. We're going back to things that were pre almost our parents' lifetime, with them trying to literally strip away the civil rights bill as a whole.
Correct.
So if we're watching these things happen, and we have an understanding of kind of what the history of, this country is, and we can see the only thing that this country respects is economic power. Why wouldn't you leave your family and your kids and your community in a better economic position? Because that's the only way we're going to have a fighting chance at anything. And I always relate things back to, our community in comparison to Asian communities, Hispanic communities and communities and whatnot. And, I would tell people, and I joke about it, I say, I had a wise gentleman tell me one time, he said, we get real caught up in politics, but we fail to understand the economics. And he told me one time, he said, he asked me, what came first? He said, economics or politics? And I was like, well, economics came first, because, beginning of time, people have been bartering and trading and buying and selling, right? And he said, so if economics came first, why was politics created? I said, well, I never really thought about it. He said, well, politics were put in place to control the economics. But unfortunately, we jumped into politics, but have no economics. So we fighting a battle in politics with no foundation economically. So you can't win a fight when you don't have a firm foundation. Anybody that's ever been in a fist fight or ever seen a wrestling competition, they understand it's about, I got to have a strong base. I got to have some leverage. I need my feet planted on the ground. I need my knees bent. I need to be in a position of power. We don't have a position of power because we don't have the economics in order. And the only way we get the economics in order is if all of us take accountability and get our finances in alignment to put ourselves and our families and future families in a better situation. Now, if we get to a point where all of our families have more than enough, now we can pool the resources and create an economic base. Because see, Asians are the second richest community here in the United States, but they vote the least of anyone. You have never seen an Asian at a poll. I promise you. I want to ask the people, how many times do you see politicians even campaigning to the Asian community? But guess what? Have you ever seen an Asian community? It's one in every city. And they control a lot in every city. I'm from Montgomery, Alabama. When Hyundai moved there, half of the city, all of a sudden, turned into, look, Korea seemed like they got their own bank, they got their own grocery stores, own shopping areas, own communities. And it happened overnight. We go to any major city, you got Chinatown here, Chinatown there. You got all these. How in the world do they have all of these communities that seem unaffected by the things that seem to affect us on almost a daily basis? We've heard about stop and frisk. We've heard about all these different things that go along and that happen to us in our community, and how, we have to teach our kids when they start driving how to be prepared and handle certain situations with the police and all these different things. Have you ever heard any other community have that conversation? Has any other community ever had to have that conversation? But see, all this boils down to, we get so focused on the politics and get bamboozled, and not because we don't understand the economics. And we have to become better. And this is why I always implore, our community and our people to get your finances order. This is why we do this podcast in a sense, because we want to make sure that, hey, if we can put ourselves in a better situation financially, that creates so many more options. But the biggest thing that it does, it creates an accountability measure, and it makes them respect you, because the only thing that certain people respect is money. And if you ain't got no money, they don't provide you no respect. They respect the Asian community. Why? Because guess what? When they want something, they pool their resources and they go fund a particular candidate, and they get what they want, and they go back to living happily ever after. You never see them crying, whining, complaining. You don't see them out marching for anything they want, because they understand everything in this world is paid for. And whatever you want, it has a price. But you have to be willing to come together and pool your resources in order to pay for whatever it is that you want to have happen. And we have to start doing that, and we got to have a better understanding of that. But that's why it's so important when I hear people say, I'm good, my kids are good, or we got enough, or I've done enough for them, I'm not doing anymore. I'm like, well, what if God told you that? What if God said that's enough? What if you were asking God for help one more time? He said, you know what, I've helped you 10 times before. I ain't gonna do nothing else for you. I'm good. No, we have to have an attitude of gratitude, and we have to take pride in being the very best that we could possibly be in every situation, regardless of how people are treating us. Because we know every day is not going to be a good day. We know every child is not going to do right 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. But guess what? That's why they're a child. But you get a chance to train that child up. You get a chance to impart something in them. And because we do know and we do believe, and we saw ourselves believers. If we say we believe the word of the Lord, because we say, train up a child the way that he should go. And when he is old, he will not depart from it. You put enough in that child. And I'm a firm believer and a witness that you put enough in, you're going to get the good back out at some point in time. Now, you don't know when, you don't know where, you don't know how. But if you put enough good in, you're going to get some good back out. And we got to do a better job of being more strategic, consistent, and purposeful in actually putting more good in, not just with our words, but with our actions, with our deeds, and most importantly, with our finances. Because we don't understand how big a role that really plays, because we look at the state of our community and why young men and women make some of the decisions that they make, and why we have been put in certain predicaments that we have been. 90% of our problems come back down to economics.
So you get your money right, get your foundation of God correct, and in the end, God, then that the earth is the Lord's and the fullness thereof, will then empower you to get your finances right, and you take a full accountability of all that you have, and then how will you utilize what you have? So the key about being a hidden millionaire is taking a full accountability and evaluation of where you are, what you have, and then building that generation of wealth within your family. And then to what Wilbert is saying is that after your personal family, now we have a public family obligation as a people, as a community, that we must build more millionaires and understand our finances as a collective to be able to navigate in this world, in this society, to be able to have the things that we desire to have, right? Not even trying to do more necessarily, right? But just being able to take care of the necessities of your community, the necessities of your family. Making sure that you're safe, making sure that you're taken care of, making sure that you have good food in your neighborhood, making sure that your churches are taken care of, making sure that all of your community businesses are taken care of, correct? Then that's where we must anchor ourselves down. And that's why we want you to take your time to evaluate your finances to see where you are, because this is the time for community building. This is the time to have more activism. This is the time that we take on the responsibility that the generations before us did, by making sure that we have rights to vote and rights to earn. Now it's your turn. We'll see you back after this break. Welcome back to Closing the Gap Podcast, The Truth About Wealth. I'm your co-host, Mr. Eddie Richardson, here with our host and the owner of Hamilton Wealth Advisors, Mr. Wilbur Hamilton. And we want to take the time to remind you that if you have not done so yet, get in contact with Mr. Hamilton and his staff at Hamilton Wealth Advisors. He has offices and throughout the country and Southeast. And your financial prosperity is their first priority. And so our goal here is to build generational wealth. And so also we want you, if you have, that's to take care of your finances. And then also if you need to take care of your faith, you don't have a faith home, then we want you to come and see us at New Grace Covenant at 830 Briarwood Drive, and let us help you build your faith and your hope in Jesus Christ. So let's continue with the show. The show title today, Hidden Millionaire. Hidden Millionaire. So on the last segment, we really were talking about legacy, right?
Mm-hmm.
Talking about legacy and how we need to conduct ourselves and have our economical base built as a family and as a community.
Mm-hmm.
And the important thing about legacy is you're going to have to leave something to somebody, right?
Mm-hmm.
But not only leaving something to somebody, but you have to build something now.
Yes.
In order to have something to leave, because legacy isn't always what's left, but legacy is what's now.
Mm-hmm.
And we need to be building legacy now. In Ecclesiastes chapter 2, the teacher talks about the vanity of all that he does, the wisdom that he does, and how he's going to leave everything to those that are still here.
Mm-hmm.
And he realizes that he can't keep everything, but he never says in there that although I can't keep it, I'm going to stop building.
Correct.
No, he continues to seek wisdom. He continues to build wealth. He continues to acquire silver. And so this is the thing for us when we're talking about being a hidden millionaire, is to faithfully, consistently, and have a disciplined approach to managing our finances in the manner in which we should, and make sure that we are properly investing economically where we need to and how we need to. And that's why closing the gap is here, because we want to close the gap between where you are and where you need to be.
Mm-hmm.
Because we believe that that's why Jesus Christ came. Jesus Christ came and he closed the chasm. He closed the gap between our broken relationship with God. And so here at Closing the Gap podcast, we are striving to break the chain that has held us back from really building the economical financial base that we need. The chain that has held us back from really building the economical financial base that we need for our sustainability as in our personal lives and as a life in the community.
Well, absolutely. I mean, it's one of those things where, what you do today will determine what you're going to have tomorrow. And we're talking about, like I said, leaving that legacy, and, how do you get to that point of leaving a legacy? And as we talked about it, in depths, last year, as the theme was, planning. You got to write it down and make it plain. And, now we got your alignment, your accountability in order, but you can't forget the plan. Because see, a lot of times, I meet people in Mr. Hamilton, I've said I got a 401k, I got a financial plan. I'm like, no, you don't. An account is not a plan. I don't care how much money you got in that account. An account is not a plan. An account is just that. It's an account. It's going to go up and down based on the value of whatever assets you have inside of that account. Whether stocks, bonds, mutual funds, ETFs, whatever's invested in, is going to move in accordance with that. And that's fine. And that's great. And we need that. And we need you to put money into that 401k. We need you to dollar cost average into the market and invest over time. We need you to make sure you got your emergency reserves. But there's some financial planning work that needs to be done and has to be done in order to create a legacy. And there's many pieces to a financial planning puzzle that we don't even take into consideration. See, when you breaking down the steps that need to happen before the actual step happens of transition assets and making sure we got something to transition, we got to make sure we look at this. I got to have a financial plan and a retirement plan. And they said, well, Mr. Hamilton, my retirement plan is I got my 401k and I got Social Security. No. That's not a plan. Those are accounts. One is an account and one is a stream of income. Guess what? The only one, every one of those you can take with you to the next generation. That is your 401k. Your Social Security is going to stop. So we got to understand, what are the pieces of creating a sound retirement plan that can lead into me actually having a legacy worth anything. Because we sit up and say, well, I got plenty of money. I got money in this account and that account. Well, that don't mean the next generation going to see it if it's not properly accounted for. If you don't have the sound plan in place, because do you have an income plan to make sure you're never going to run out of money? Well, Mr. Hamilton, I never thought about that. Well, I'm like, well, I just know I got money in my 401k and I got Social Security. Well, no, is that going to be enough income to last you for the rest of your life? So do you have an income plan, number one? Number two, do you have a healthcare plan? What you mean healthcare plan? I'm like, you plan on living, right? People are living longer than ever, which is great. And guess what? It chances are if you living longer, probably you're going to have to live with something longer than you planned. Because usually our health don't get better as we get older. Usually it starts to deteriorate, and we need more help as you get older. And that's fine. That happens to us all. But we need to account for that. That the average cost for most people going to spend after 65 on healthcare alone is almost $200,000. That's just healthcare costs. And that's, how much you paying in your Medicare between Part A and Part B. Do you understand that Medicare Part A, is only covers 80%? So if you go into the hospital and you have some type of, surgery or something that happens, where the other 20% gonna come from? Well, you got to have some either supplemental, coverage or secondary major medical coverage. You got to have something to cover that gap that you're gonna have, and that's a part of the retirement and the income planning and the financial planning that must happen. So I got to have an income plan to make sure I don't run out of money. I need to have a healthcare plan to make sure I'm healthy enough to enjoy the money. I need to have, a long-term care plan, because if I need some type of home health care, who's going to pay for it and take care of me? But guess what? One of the most important plans that we need to have that we don't even think about is a tax plan. We don't understand it. Guess what? That money's inside the IRA and that 401k. Uncle Sam got to get his cut too. And they get their cut first. Right. So guess what? 25% of that don't even belong to you. And it actually can be more than that depending on your tax rate and actually how much you take out at one time. You can push yourself into a higher tax bracket. So understand, do I have a tax plan? So all these areas have to be touched and have to be accounted for before I even get to creating a legacy plan. So I've done all these wonderful things, but if I miss one, it eliminates everything that I work for. So if I got an income plan and I got a tax plan and I skip to the legacy plan, but just say I forget to have the healthcare plan. I forget to have a long-term care plan. And the average cost of a nursing home in the state of Alabama right now is about $70,000 a year. The price of in-home health care is about $50,000 a year on average. So we're talking about these are the costs right now in 2026. Now, we all have felt the effects of inflation over the last 5 years. Well, how about this? Healthcare inflation is higher than regular inflation. Those costs have been rising even faster. So if we take into account the costs that we have in those areas right now, and you push that forward 10, 20, 30 years now, how much is that? So now we're thinking that, we might be a silent millionaire today, but we might be unfortunately broke tomorrow if we don't have the proper planning in place. So we have to have all of these things to create a holistic, fully serviced, and well managed financial plan that leads to a successful legacy plan. Because within the legacy plan, do we need a will or a trust? Do you have a healthcare directive? Do you have a power of attorney? These are all things that go inside of the legacy planning. And these are things and areas that if I ask most people, we don't have any of those boxes checked. We just got the accounts with the money in it. We got Social Security that's going to give us an income, but we don't have an income plan. We haven't thought about a healthcare plan. Most of us, we see the effects of long-term care planning because as we get older, we started dealing with either our grandparents and witness them or our parents, seeing what they're going through. So now all of a sudden, we don't have a long-term care plan in place. And now we get to a point where we're hoping to have a legacy to pass on. And I didn't even throw in there the investment planning that has to take place because the money got to be managed the right way all along to make sure we got something left over. So there's a number of areas that have to be taken into consideration when actually creating a sound financial plan for someone that leads into them actually doing some legacy planning and us actually passing on wealth from one generation to the next. But even in that, it's how do you pass it on? Do you want a will? Do you want to trust? Well, if we're talking about assets, and we're talking about a lot of people that are silent millionaires depending on between equity in their homes and the real estate holders they've inherited from, mamas and dads and sisters and brothers that may have passed away. And, we're talking about, maybe artwork and all the things that they have, pensions and brokerage accounts, CDs, all of this. And we're talking about maybe having, even if it's only $500,000, even if it's only 250,000. Don't you want that still to go to the next generation properly? Don't you still want someone to be able to enjoy that the way you would have intended them to enjoy it? Well, guess what? If you don't have the right legacy plan in place and you don't have the right estate planning in place, guess what? That'll never happen. Because if you leave it up to chance and all of a sudden you got to go through the estate and people had to go to court and you got two people fighting over it and you got to hire an attorney and attorney costs, The average cost to probate in a state in Alabama is between $8,000 and $10,000. So people say, "Well, I ain't leaving them no money." Well, you costing people money if you ain't left them no money.
Right.
It's cheaper for me to just leave your stuff alone and just act like you never had anything than for me to now come out of pocket to try and save an estate that you didn't even plan for. You have a home. That's valuable.
Right.
We need to make sure these things are done. So do you need a will or do you need a trust? A will still has to pass through probate. If you have your home and it still has to be probated, someone can contest that. If I got a trust, guess what? All of a sudden, I just bypass the probate process. And I see people all the time. Ms. Hamilton, I heard, I talked about a trust, and the attorney told me it was like $2,500 or $3,000. Man, it was just too expensive for me. I just told him I just gonna get me a will. And I said, okay, well, that sounds good. Because we're always making decisions based on how much something costs, rather than understanding the value that it actually provides. So now we just talked about it. And that legacy. The average cost of probate in the state the probate in the state in Alabama is about $8,000 to $10,000 for an attorney. So would you rather have the trust in place where you don't have to hire the attorney to probate the estate? Well, now, that costs you $2,500 to $3,000, or you gonna cost your loved ones $8,000 to $10,000, later on down the road. Which one sounds more effective to you?
Right.
I mean, in the world that I live in, $2,500 to $3,000 is a lot less than $8,000 to $10,000.
Right.
And now we get to bypass that. But guess what also gets bypassed? The fighting, the conversations, the uproar and the contentious nature that is created within the family because, well, grandmama said I was going to get the house. Well, no. Well, she said she was going to give it to her niece. Well, no. Then grandma's sister come in. No. She told me I was going to have it. Now all of a sudden, we're fighting. Everybody fighting over something they ain't putting no money in on. Don't make a lot of sense. But we've seen it tear families apart time and time again. And all it's doing is costing us more and more money. And at the end of the day, who wins? The system wins. Because the system is being funded based on our lack of planning and preparation. And at the end of the day, how many of our houses end up lost because of someone not paying the taxes on the house, or the house going into foreclosure, in the city getting the house and all of a sudden turning it and selling it and making a profit when all we had to do was do a little bit of planning, a little bit of preparation to put ourselves in a position where now I'm passing on assets because I've done investment planning, tax planning, healthcare planning, long-term care planning, income planning, and now legacy planning. So I know for a fact I'm leaving my family in a better position than they were when I came. And that's the overall goal. The goal is we always want to leave things in a better position than it was when we found it. Like we talked about at the beginning of the show, when grandmama let you borrow that car, you would make sure before you brought that car back, you may vacuum it out, you may wash it up, you throw a little gas in the tank to make sure, say, you know what? So the next time I ask grandma for that car, grandma gonna say, you know what? Go ahead, baby, because it's gonna come back better than what it was when you left. So that's how we have to. That's the attitude that we have to have and the approach that we got to take with our finances. We have to be attentive. We have to be accountable, and we have to get all of these things in alignment. So now we can actually move forward in a positive direction and put not just our families, but people we would never come into contact in a better situation.
Yeah, that's key. That's key. And so that's why it's important for all of you to take the time, contact Hamilton Wealth Advisors, visit the website at hamiltonwealthadv.com, and you realize that Hamilton Wealth always makes sure that your legacy and your success is placed first. Offices in Atlanta, Dallas, Huntsville, Birmingham. And what Mr. Hamilton just detailed to you is an outline of what they do on a daily basis. And that's tailor making portfolios that fit you and your needs personally. So we want you to put in the call, set up the consultation so that you have an understanding of, am I really a hidden millionaire? What do I really have in my assets that I can leave a legacy to those that I'm living with and those that I'm going to leave behind? Being able to do a cost analysis, because oftentimes we don't value what you said, Wilbur, is we look at the now cost and don't count the cost for later. And we evaluate things based on our finite understanding now, and not understanding that inflation is the secret robber that's within everything, because the price of something now is not going to be the price tomorrow. And so you can pay a little now for the comfort and peace of the generations that are coming after you now, so that they don't have to deal with the inflationary costs later on. Because the costs that you labeled out now, they're the costs that pretty much of 2026. We don't know when our time is going to be called, or whoever is listening, if their time is going to be now that they're going to leave this earth, or it's going to be next year, next month, 5 years, 10 years from now. So the cost of an attorney is going to go up, right? So it's important that take advantage of the now. You are sitting in a place now that you have the knowledge, you have the resources, you have the access to Hamilton Wealth Advisors, you have the access to God in prayer, you have the access to all of these things, but you fail to make sure that you take care of it because in your mind, everything is okay. Well, we're telling you, no, everything is not okay. If you don't have those things that Mr. Hamilton has laid out, you are not reviewing power of attorney, if you're not reviewing your healthcare plan, if you don't have a healthcare plan, then it's important and incumbent upon you to get these things in place now, today. Don't wait till later on, but do it now, because it's going to cost you more later than what it will cost now.
Well, a lot of times people don't understand the cost that they're paying, because there's a time value of money that we don't account for. And the value of information and knowledge and working with professionals is far greater than we can really ever imagine. And I give people, just give an example of this. Working with a client. Average client, he's, hidden millionaire. He was a hidden millionaire because, he had a home that was actually worth about $800,000. He owed about $275,000 on their home. And, he said, Mr. Hamilton, I'm looking to retire. He was 63 years of age. His wife was 58. He said, man, I really want to just kind of shut it down. We want to start traveling, enjoying grandkids. I said, man, that's great. He said, well, I just need about $8,000 a year to live on. I said, well, that's okay, no problem. So I'm going through his finance, and he had saved, had invested in his 401k and got the match, and he had done some outside savings, and had some money in the bank, emergency reserves, and he had a little pension from a previous job. So I'm looking around, and we calculated Social Security. So I said, man, you know what? Between his Social Security and his, the money he had a comfortable, $8,000 a month, and that would have left his family, a decent amount of money. I said, well, how much longer do you have your mortgage payment? He said, well, a mortgage payment, I have about another 10 years. I said, okay, another 10 years. I said, how much is your mortgage payment? He said, it's about $3,000 a month. I said, well, that's $36,000 a year in just mortgage payment, right? I said, so if you didn't have a mortgage payment, how much you need to live on? He said, oh man, that drops my income need to about, $5,000 a month. I said, well, then you and your wife make that in Social Security, don't you? He said, yeah, I'd be in great shape. I said, okay. I said, well, how about this? Do you know there's a program that is specifically designed for people who are at least 62 years of age and have to have at least 60% of equity in their home? And if you meet those criteria, you actually have programs that actually could eliminate your mortgage payment and defer it for the rest of your life. You never have to make another payment again. And on the back end, your kids can still sell your home for whatever it's worth. He said, so you mean to tell me I can save $360,000 over the next 10 years plus tax? Because if I had to take out $3,000 a month out of my retirement account, it cost me $4,000 because I got to pay taxes at about 25% clip. So if we look at $4,000 a month, that's $48,000 a year. Over the next 10 years, that was $480,000, right? Over the next 10 years, that him utilizing this program, he got to put back in his pocket. So all of a sudden, his kids have now just inherited an additional $480,000. That's the effects of proper planning. If that's the effects of working with a professional, that's why you need to contact Hamilton Wealth Advisors. We'll see you next time.